melting of plastic happens at injection mold facilities. If it was happening here, none of you would be getting a tour. So they melt that plastic down, they pour it into our mold, it's our patent, and they send all the parts and pieces to us here. We hand assemble everything here. We do 1 million kazoos a year. We average 5,000 a day. And every other day we have kazoos going somewhere else in the world. So the first video you're going to watch is going to take you on a tour of that facility. And the second is the history of the kazoo. When those are over, you're going to stay seated and we're going to go over some instruments.
That's so funny. Perfect.
A man by the name of Alabama Vest had an idea. Maybe it was based on the gourd mirlitons he had heard about used in Africa, or maybe he was looking for an improvement on the old wax paper and comb that was popular in the day. But Alabama, who lived in Georgia, had a plan for the new instrument. He drew it out and brought it to a local clockmaker, Thaddeus Von Clay, who took one look at his plans and got to work. That little tin device that they created would take the world by storm. You probably have one in your house. There are millions around, and its past is as colorful as its probable future. This is a brief history of the kazoo. The story goes that Alabama and Thaddeus first showed off their device at the 1852 Georgia State Fair. Back then, they called it the Down South Submarine. And slowly it started catching on. It was easy to hit over a banjo and cheaper than a horn section. And soon it became a staple of jug bands, as well as early blues and jazz groups. Children's clubs and men's associations realized the ease at which they can learn the instrument and soon formed bands. By the late 1800s, the small metal mirliton, now called the kazoo, was regularly played at musical performances and community parades from Washington, D.C. to Honolulu, Hawaii. When World War I hit in 1917, Americans banded together to support the troops. Individuals and organizations sent care packages overseas. Red Cross records show their shipments included 8 pianos and 463 other musical instruments. It's safe to assume that kazoos were included. In the 1960s and 70s, the kazoo was embraced by a flourishing rock scene. Groups such as the Beatles, Pink Floyd, the Kinks, and others featured kazoo solos in some of their hit records. In its 150 years of existence, the kazoo hasn't slowed down, and neither have the innovations. Kazoos come in as many materials as they do colors: wood, plastic, brass, bamboo, and now electric kazoos are taking the world by storm. We can only guess where this expressive but humble instrument will be in another 150 years. Here's to you, kazoo, for keeping America humming.
1952 at the Georgia State Fair in Macon. And do any of you recall what they said this little guy's name was for the first 50 years of its life? That's in a down south submarine. It looks like a submarine, and it makes sense. It was the mid-1800s. We were first making submarines, and they were being made in the south, so they were popular. And the story goes in the 1900s, when they went to patent that name, they couldn't use submarine. So we know the gentleman that first used kazoo, but as far as where he got that from, we're not really sure. We do think this instrument is based off of an African instrument where they would take gourd and bone and hollow them out, and then they would use things like leather, my favorite, the egg sac of a spider, to use that vibration, because it is a mirlitone instrument, so you need that vibration. So have you ever played a kazoo? No, yes, some. So you gotta have a singer talk, so I'm gonna take my mask off so I can play these instruments for you guys. I'm gonna ask you to keep your mask on. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna say hello into my kazoo. And get my kazoos down. And here at Kazoobie Kazoo, we decided to take a little We wanted to accessorize to make sure there was more air coming out the wazoo, so we put a horn on our kazoo, and now we call it a wazoo. Then we went a little bit further. We took a bugle bell or trumpet in. It goes right on the end of my wazoo, and now I have a wazoo bowl. Take the horn off of my wazoo bowl, and now I have a kazoo bowl. But kazoo started out a lot more like this. This is my 10 kazoo, and this is made by the Clark Company. They're in the UK. There are 3 kazoo manufacturers in the world. There's us, there's the Clark, and there's the Woodstock, and they're in New York. So these are the oldest. They started out in the late 1800s, and this is a lot like the original kazoo in that it's pounded out 10. And it has a resonator that you're going to have to replace because of the moisture in your breath. When we change the material, we're going to change our sound. I've got the Woodstock kazoo, and this is the classic Americana kazoo. This is from the manufacturer in Eaton, New York. They're the only one besides us in the United States. They've made these since 1915, and you can go there and take a tour as well. But this is the classic Americana kazoo. And we've got a high-class fancy kazoo. It's made with a thicker metal, and it is plated in 24 karat gold. Ooh. We also have kazoos made out of wood. This is loose kazoos, and they use recycled plastic for their material. That's become pretty popular with one specific material, which is grocery bags. Grocery bags actually make really good resonator replacements. So that is what they use. We've got the barrel kazoo. And we've got the wildly wind noisy thing, which we always encourage adults to buy for kids, as long as they don't live with you or anywhere near you.
Oh
We've got the Kazoobie. It's been around for over 100 years, and it's like the kazoo. It's just got a longer horn, a resonator on each side, and your mouth goes right here. We've got a plastic version of the Kazoobie. We make this version. We're the only place in the world that makes a plastic version of the Kazoobie. So, of course, with ours, you can accessorize, and this would be considered the loudest kazoo. And it's important for businesses to change and adapt to survive. So here at Kazoobie, we made a little tiny microphone. It plugs into any amp or speaker, fits right into the top of your kazoo, and now you have the electric kazoo. Alright, so that's my kazoo side. That's me making all of the noise. Now we're going to go to our horns and whistles side. And we have lots of horns and whistles for sale because we're one of the largest distributors for Acme products in the United States. Some of you know exactly what Acme is. You recognize that ACME. I'm assuming a lot of the younger people probably not so much. But we'll go back there in a minute. We're going to start with our two-tone whistle. They use these in big cities. Doormen at hotels will have these in their hand to help taxi cabs for folks. An official British police whistle. This was one of the first contracts Acme ever had. It was in the late 1800s, and they had to make whistles for the entire UK police department. They're called metropolitan whistles. They're also called bobby whistles, and that's because officers over there are called bobbies. We also have this little guy. This is my favorite. Have you ever seen one of these? Some have, some haven't. So the reason I like this is because it's been used for a lot of different things. It started out as a child's toy over 100 years ago, and then during World War II, they realized made with a thicker metal, these were really good signaling devices. So especially during the Normandy landings, every paratrooper unfortunately, one of those German guns sounded really similar to that tube clip. And today we see it mostly used in animal training and voice training. We see the clicker, it's also called a cricket as well. We also have this little guy, which is why we are all familiar with Acme. When they first started making film, it was silent, it had no noise, vaudeville, Charlie Chaplin. When they figured out they could add sound, they laid it right on top. Those were talkies, that's when their mouths did not match. Singing in the Rain was about that. And that is when we started using a lot of Acme products in sound effects. So if you watched an older film and you heard wind, it would have come from a little wind whistle. Sirens from siren whistles. And they would also use this a good bit. Have you ever seen one of these? Yeah, this one has lots of names. Clown whistle, tin whistle, penny whistle, slide whistle. Its original name was a Swanee whistle. It started by Native Americans. So this is a very old instrument, but most people recognize this instrument from one specific sound. Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner used it all the time. I'm going to see if you can tell me what this sound is. What is it? That's it, it's something falling, and normally it was a coyote, an anvil, and sometimes a safe with Acme written on it. A lot of today's kids recognize it now, though, today from shows like SpongeBob SquarePants or Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. We make sounds a little more like this. We've also got a toy train whistle. And I have, that's right, and this is my adult train whistle. And that should give the adults a hint. So this one takes a big set of lungs, and it sounds a lot better earlier in the day. But it's similar to those old steam engine trains or tugboats, because they have a much larger version of this off to the side with all that steam being fed right to it. We also have our boat horn. So if you're familiar with boating, whether a pond, lake, the ocean, a kayak, a john boat, or a yacht, you've always had two things at all times. Coast Guard and DNR are going to make sure you do. Unless you're at night, then you have to have lights. So that's whistles, life jackets, air horns, things like that, and this counts for those. This is Maritime International and Coast Guard approved. It can be heard for up to 2 miles. And in my experience, it's really good at getting teenagers out of bed. Are you ready? This one is loud. All done. Real quick. All done. All right. The last thing I'm going to show you on my tray is this. Have you ever seen one of these?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Some of you have. Some of you haven't. These are really old. They started from the Polynesian Islands 2,000 years ago. Young men would make these for the girls if they wanted to court or marry. I give you 2 recommendations if you purchase one of these. Never share it, and don't ever use it if you're sick. And that is because it's a nose flute. You place this against your face, you blow air out of your nose in this hole, that air is going to come out of this hole and go into your mouth, and you move your mouth around to change your sound. Are you ready? So like I said, we do about 1 million kazoos a year. We average about 5,000 a day. Examples of where our kazoos are going: 20,000 to Hong Kong for a marathon, DreamWorks Animation for different movie premieres, Amazon, Trader Joe's, Walt Disney, Sweet Fried Frozen Yogurt, lots of big things you've heard of, and then down to small businesses where they're using the place of business cards. So we're a little smaller back here. We do have a couple people out today. So this Mary is back here though, and she is filling canisters that we will be sending out. But welcome back to the factory. This is where all the magic happens. Most of this factory is used to store all of our parts and our pieces. We've got to have a lot of space for all of that. But as far as assembling and imprinting, we do all of that right here in this corner. So everything here runs off of pneumatics. So that means we've got another room with a big air compressor. We fill it up with lots of air. I let my air out really fast. It goes through all of my hose lines and makes all of my machines move and work. So Miss Mary, I'm going to come over here and steal some stuff really quick. Push my chair all the way so everybody can see. And I'm going to grab some keys. So when those parts and pieces arrive to us, they start just like this. This is my polypropylene. And this is a really typical plastic we use today. It's a heavy-duty plastic. You can grind this right up and recycle it right back down. But this is my body and my cap, that polypropylene. For my younger audience members only, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Are you ready? So this is polypropylene. My resonator is polyethylene. They're both made out of plastic. Where does plastic come from? You can phone a friend. Well, I'll give you a secret. Most adults don't know the answer to this either.
Out of wood.
Out of wood, that's a good guess, and you're not kind of dinosaurs. Yeah, you're kind of right too, yeah. It's oil. It's fossil fuels. It's the petroleum and stuff we pump out of the ground. It's also the main ingredient in most soap, lotion, makeup, and all sorts of things. So my polyethylene, which is my little tiny resonator, is a mildew-resistant, waterproof, and bacteria-resistant type of plastic. This is what we use in medical fields, IV bags, things like that. Or this little polyethylene guy. That allows my kazoo to go on the top shelf of the dishwasher. Let it go through the dishwasher, but let it hand dry, just because heat with any kind of thin plastic is not a good thing. Let it hand dry, it's good as new. This is not a one-time use plastic. This kazoo is made to last a lifetime. The kazoo that I was using up front, it is clean, don't panic. But I've been using that same kazoo for 6 years. I have washed it though. So just not bad. Alright, with every kazoo by hand, we take one of these resonators. More than one, it's not going to sound right, and I don't want to bend or wrinkle this little guy. So we lay him nice and neat and flat by hand, just like that. We're going to take our resonator, set it right on top. I'm not going to push down really hard. I want the air to do that hard work for me. I'm going to come over to my capper, and I'm just going to insert my kazoo into my capper, and that air is going to send a plate down with 130 pounds of pressure really fast. 1, 2, 3. I got a kazoo, that's it. Cool. Safety tested and approved for 3 and up. Under, it's a lollipop roll. We're not worried about loose pieces coming off at all. We don't want them to fall down with this in their mouth. We can do a box of 500 over here in less than 45 minutes. Wow. The most important thing is making sure that we are getting 1 resonator per kazoo. And we are taught how to do a lot of things here. So we do change jobs and move around, because this can get a little monotonous. There we go. So it's nice and quick, and we get going pretty fast over here. The most important thing, though, are these little polyethylene resonators. And that is going to lead me to this machine. Everyone in this building wishes that polyethylene came to us in cute little circles, but it does not. This is how my polyethylene arrives. And it comes out of New Jersey, so everything is made in the United States with our kazoo. But we order our polyethylene just like this. It is a specific thickness for us, and it's really just the thickness that we find works the best. I have 10 pieces on this machine right here, which is just a giant hole punch. And every time I use this machine in a perfect world, I should get 30 resonators with each punch and a little bit of noise. Alright, I just did that 4 times, so I should have given myself 120 resonators. But there is no such thing as a perfect world. Amen. Like most things in life, we've just made a whole new job. And that is because the pressure of that machine pushed all of my polyethylene back together. So if we do 1 million kazoos a year, we've got to separate 1 million resonators a year. And we tread air and water and vibration to get these little guys back apart. But what works best is to do all 1 million of them. It's super exciting, just like this. All right? One at a time. They follow us home. We find them in our dryer and our dishwasher. In the winter, when there's less moisture in the air, there's more static, they really like to stick to us. So they go everywhere. They're like, where's Waldo? You can find them if you look. The secret to this job, though, is interns and you people. So that's how we try to get this done. But unfortunately, all of us are very familiar with this. We want to make sure they're all separated. We pick out the bad ones. That way, who's ever capping can cap at their fastest pace. There are some places that use powder to separate this type of material, but this is an instrument that you play. We find people with breathing issues don't do well with that, so we separate them, by hand. So the one thing that we do not do here by hand at Kazoobie Kazoo is like most factories around the world when you're dealing with tiny parts and pieces. I had that label from the change up. Alright, so the one thing we don't do here at Kazoobie Kazoo by hand is like most places, we don't count. I do not want to count an order of 3,000 kazoos. That is not an abnormal order at all. And I would be doing a lot of recounting. So what we do is we just place our kazoos in our bucket. We set the bucket on our scale. That scale gives us the exact number amount in here. It deducts the weight of the bucket. So we are all going to play a Price is Right guessing game back here. Y'all are going to guess how many kazoos I have in my bucket. If you win the correct amount, you win the satisfaction of guessing right. Oh. And remember, on the Price is Right, if you go over, you do not win the sweepstakes. All right, so I'm going to go around and you can tell me how many kazoos you think I have in my bucket. 458. You should say one. One, two, yeah, no, that's a good guess. Not one. What? 215? Okay. Good guess. 37. All right, everybody remember your numbers? I'm going to go set it on my scale. This can do capture uncapped kazoos. These have not been assembled, so I've got to make sure I have it on the correct setting. Ooh, and it tells me I have 260 kazoos. So if you stayed under, you would have gone home with the Winnebago and the washer and dryer. If you went over, you did not win. It's accurate. I'm going to reach it. I'm going to take 3 out. You can see it goes right down to that 257. Wow. And that's how we count every kazoo here. I actually had that on when you guys walked back here, so you could have looked and cheated, which is why I had to take some out, because I wasn't going to let that happen. All right. So over here, these are our automatic baggers. So the large one goes back to 25 and 50. And we mostly use these for stock kazoos. And those are kazoos that we always have on hand that have basic sayings. These are our Mardi Gras kazoos. They say, let the good times roll in French. We've got kazoos for pretty much every holiday, event, wedding, anniversary, graduation, you name it. We've probably got a kazoo that says something you can use. The smaller one does bags of 5 and individual bags, and we like this job because it is instant gratification. You guys can kind of move down if you want and come down this way. We can get a box of 500 kazoos done on this machine in less than 40-45 minutes. It is nice and fast. It's more like 30 minutes if I'm honest. And I'm just going to grab some of these so you can see. So these machines both operate the exact same way. This one does have a printer on the back of it so we can put barcodes on our bags if we need to. Most of the time though, our kazoos are not going to go into bags. They're going to leave here loose in a box because they're getting distributed really quickly, or they're getting packaged as their product. So if you go on Amazon and you type in Kazoos, you'll see our Kazoos, but it's going to be under things like West Music and other businesses with their logo on it. The ones I just showed you right there in that container, those said Thomann. That's a German company. We're going to send about 8,000 to them every few months is what we do, and then it goes to their hub, and then they distribute throughout Europe to their music stores. So the way these work is we turn our air on, and that air helps open up our bag. I will tell you this one has a name. You need a machine with a name, that means she's temperamental. You have to be nice. This is Betsy. And I apologize if anyone's named Betsy. It's not personal. We drop our Kazoo in. They have pedals on the floor that when we press our foot on the pedal, it's going to make this part close. Heat seal that bag shut, pull the old one off, and a new one will pop right out in its place. Mickey on here. Sorry. Nice and fast. So that is how we get all of our Kazoos into our bag. So like I said, most of the time we're not having to use these machines that often. So to get the pictures on our Kazoos, which is what separates us from all the other Kazoo manufacturers around the world, and like I said, there's not that many, is you are going to first order a one-time set if you have $60 so we can get your stamp. A gentleman in Michigan makes these for us. And this is how we can have people's faces on our Kazoos, tiny detail, characters. We did some for SpongeBob, the movie premiere, and Captain Underpants movie premiere, and had the characters on there with the title. Lots of little detail can go on here. The stamps are made of aluminum and silicone so they can handle heat and pressure. We see lots of things being made out of silicone today, especially in the kitchen aisle, and that's because the main ingredient of silicone is sand. So it can maintain a much higher heat and keep that shape. I have 3 samples here. I've got my Amazon stamp. This is a reverse image. I have my Walt Disney World right here. And this one I like to just kind of get my young folks to read. Can you read that? It's a reverse image. And I do that because I know they can't because it's from South Korea, so I'm giving them a hard time. All of these that we have, we keep. So in this filing cabinet behind me, I have over 20 years worth of those stamps saved up. And we do have customers that have been calling us for that long, and we'll pull their stamp and print what they need. So that stamp always belongs to them. They're also going to pick out their color ink. We've got 40 color inks to choose from. And this is a really commonly used ink. It's a dry powder pressed ink. It's never wet or sticky. This is what's on coffee cups and kids' toys, things like that. Non-toxic, and the moment it goes on the object, depending on what that object is, it can go straight into the dishwasher. They're also going to pick out their color body and cap. We've got 15 color bodies, 14 color caps. They can mix and match. They can do solids. It's up to them. When we've got everything together, we come to this machine. She used to work in a Mr. Coffee factory printing on coffee pots. Over time, the caffeine got to her, so now she does Kazoos. The way she works is her head comes down with 2,000 pounds of pressure. The head of that machine is 590 degrees, so it is hotter than your oven. The stamp is installed right underneath. We use gloves and tools to change it throughout the day because this takes far too long to heat and cool. My ink is running right in between the stamp and my cradle where I place my Kazoo. So I'm going to stick my Kazoo right into the cradle, and these machines have safety sensors on either side. I've got to make sure my hands go in there at the exact same time so it knows that I'm out of the way. And when my hands go in, you'll see that head drop down to that 2,000 pounds, that 590 degrees, and it's going to sit on my Kazoo for less than 1/8 of a second. And that's it. It's dry, it's not hot, it's done. I'll pull a little bit, it's good though. And that's all there is to it. And we can do 500 in less than 40 minutes on this machine. The most important thing is making sure that that image is just right. So every Kazoo we do, we are looking at really quick for any mistakes or imperfections, because we wouldn't want to send that to our customer. If we do get a little mistake on there, we're going to heat the facade, the front of that Kazoo back up. But if it doesn't work, we're not going to spend all day fixing that one Kazoo. And sometimes that one says Southern Comfort. We'll make it difficult. You can see this is Riverbank Zoo, and it's double printed, so it's got another line under there. So we wouldn't send that to them, but these kazoos are still good. There's nothing wrong with them, so a lot of times these kazoos go other places. They get sent to different people. So if you look on this wall, you're going to see boys and girls in Rwanda, Ghana, and Africa, Cuba, and Mexico, and our latest is Vietnam. And if you check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, things like that, you will see our little Kazoobie folks. They appear for little advertisements. We've got Forrest Gump and Jenny. He's not a smart man, but he knows what love is. That was for Valentine's Day. We have the Shining Twins. Just hum, just hum. We've got Marty McFly and Doc from Back to the Future. They really wanted to get out of 2020. We've got Rosie the Riveter Kazoo, Robin, all kinds of little Halloween, Festivus for the rest of its Christmas kazoos. So they make their little appearances and show up from time to time. So I know I talk pretty fast, and I am actually from here. If you guys have any questions. All right. That's why I feel it. All right. Perfect. That's it. You got it.